Ambulance officer Kevin Johnston needs a bone marrow transplant if he's to survive leukemia. Doctors have searched Australia but are yet to find a suitable donor. So Kevin's colleagues and their families are giving blood, hoping that a match can be found.
Unfortunately, I have a rare bone marrow type, so they have to search a worldwide register to try and find it. And that's the definitive treatment for where my disease is at.
The Australian Bone Marrow Register contains the details of only 160,000 people. If more donors sign up, more lives will be saved.
In Kevin's case, the platelets and the plasma products that we will make from the people coming in to donate are vital, and they save lives every day. If we don't have them, then we cannot help the people that need them the most, like leukemia patients and cancer patients.
We are used to dealing with sort of a lot of trauma out on the street, but when our own members of staff are involved, it makes it sort of very, very personal. So it sort of highlights it to us. So everyone, has decided to really get involved with the blood transfusion service.
I think it's fabulous. If I don't benefit from it, maybe someone else out there will who needs a transplant. And as well, the blood bank will get much needed supplies.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The coal miners and trainee rescuers were given a last-minute pep talk this morning before entering a simulated emergency situation. The recreated mine shaft at the mine's rescue base at Argenton near Newcastle had a fire lit deep inside, something that normally strikes fear into any coal miner's heart. But 34 are taking part in induction courses around the state to counteract the current decline in qualified rescuers. And the pleasing news for the trainers is that many taking part are young men.
With Mines Rescue, we have to pass a stringent medical each year, and particularly as you start to get over 40, it just gets a little bit harder.
One of today's exercises saw trainees enter the smokefield shaft to rescue an injured colleague. 5% of all coal miners in the industry have to be trained by Mines Rescue to be able to deal with an emergency. But of course, it's hoped the skills will never be needed, and the training will at least help prevent workplace accidents.
Mines Rescue isn't about responding all the time, it's about having an awareness, looking at problems that could happen in your workplace, and these people certainly will join the cream of the industry in regards to health and safety.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News. One adult shop has been proposed for William Street, Raymond Terrace's main retail centre, the other for a warehouse on the Pacific Highway at Heatherbrae. But opponents like Pastor Colin Haddo say there's evidence in church research that pornography can lead to sexual abuse in women and children.
We don't want that to happen in our community. We want people to feel safe and not be sexually abused. Sex is a good thing, but when it's kept clean, it's right.
Many in the community agree. Hundreds of people have signed petitions to have the applications rejected. But Port Stephens Council has recommended both adult shops be approved by councillors at tonight's meeting.
They are businesses that are legal if they have approval. The councils have got to consider that planning information and the planning requirements in making a decision.
If council votes in favour of the businesses, Pastor Colin Haddo has vowed to continue the fight.
There's a community of ministers here saying no for what we believe and what we understand and what we see happening.
Last time I was in France, I raced about 10 times. I had one win and a few minor placings, but always in the top 10 or 15 where the money is. So
With all teams in the Open Division going into the last round with a win apiece, players seemed extra determined to push their claims for state selection. Northern's Shane Nahu put his hand up early, as did Southern's Glenn McCallum, both posting tries in the opening minutes. The initial pace slowed for a while until Chad Solomon raced away to break the 6-all deadlock. Southern's defence first hit back and then caved in as Luke Mercer applied some force of his own to put Northern further in front. The green machine was indeed proving hard to stop, and when Lloyd Russell crossed, it went to the break with a 14-point lead. In the second half, Jermaine Ale and then Luke Mercer kept the points coming for Northern, and while his opposite number at Southern finally broke the drought for his side, a sensational try to Matthew Lantry dashed any hopes of a Blues revival, Northern winning 38-16. But despite having as many victories as Sydney in the Opens, Northern only earned 4 New South Wales jerseys to the City team's 9. 3 players from the state's northwest also got a call-up, including Tom Learoyd from Tamworth's Farrer Agricultural High, who was named Player of the Trials. The Western team only donated 1 player to the under-15 side, with Sydney and Northern each having 8 named, half of Northern's being from Hunter Sports High. Both state teams contest the Australian titles in July. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Until recently, these kids were setting themselves up for a life of crime, starting with truancy, drug use and antisocial behaviour.
So they've all committed some form of minor offences and have been dealt with through the Young Offenders Act and referred to this particular program.
Police, citizens' youth clubs and the Department of Sport and Recreation are showing these youngsters that there's more to life than breaking the law. They've all undergone a 12-week program teaching them job interview skills, ways to avoid drug use and crime, and legal ways of having fun.
I've learnt confidence, that I can do what I want to do if I try. I can achieve anything.
The latest group of success stories graduated today, ready to tackle life in a different way.
I don't really feel like doing much crime and that no more. It's not worth it. I prefer to get on with my life.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
This hilltop, known as Mahogany Ridge, is the site for the controversial International Standard Ecotourism proposal. The development application for the $25 million initial phase of the project is back in the spotlight after the Newcastle-based developer provided additional information for Port Stephens Council almost 2 years after the proposal was lodged.
Everything the council has asked of us, we put in that report and handed that back to them.
Stage 1 features a 5-star hotel, apartments, an entertainment centre and an arts and crafts complex. While an overall site master plan includes a lake, Council wanted to know more about water supply before deciding the proposal's fate. When complete, Mahogany Ridge will also boast a 6-star hotel, which developers believe will require up to 500 security staff to protect their international guests. Another security issue is protection of the local bushland.
They've tried to work with what the terrain, the topography and the area, so they take this beauty of this area to the rest of Australia and especially internationally.
Tranquility is a hallmark of Duns Creek, however there's been anything but for residents in recent years. The locals are scrutinising the latest information on the resort project and are again expected to voice their opposition.
We don't feel that the studies attached, generally speaking, answer the questions that have been raised.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
After a great week of bowls, only 2 teams remained this afternoon in Redhead's Masters triples, and it was the composite team of Tony Zermack, Ian Lean and Chris Wilkinson that took the early advantage. By the completion of the 21 ends, however, all the park rivals Terry Pink, Alan Ryan and Glenn Dow had drawn level, the composite team clinching the title on the extra end, 18-17. The classroom went cross-country for more than 600 of the Hunter Region's primary students at Wallsend today. Running between 2 and 3 kilometres, the top 6 place-getters in each division will compete at the state championships in July. Meanwhile, the wet ground met stamina counted for little at the National Tug-of-War Championships at Maitland. In the 720 kilogram class, it was the big men who dominated. While these teams from Karua and Maitland aren't expected to challenge in this weight division, Maitland sides have won the last 4 youth titles. There'll be plenty of tests of strength and endurance in Newcastle Rugby League this weekend, with the Blues looking to bounce back from a shock midweek loss to Maitland. And a full round of Newcastle and Hunter Rugby will be fought out tomorrow, with clubs losing a raft of players to Sunday's Country Week prelim between Newcastle and North Coast.
Tonight's big match between the West Tigers and the Brisbane Broncos will be an extraordinary game to watch. The Broncos are basically feeling their feeder club, the Toowoomba Clydesdales, in first grade. Now, Stuart Kelly, he's 27 years of age and he'll feel like a granddad out there tonight. But it is great to see halfback Scott Prince back in the side after a long run with injuries. He'll team up with Brett Seymour, who debuted last week. He's 17 years of age and many of the Broncos stars think his kid's got a big future in the game. Now, most rugby league purists have given their thumbs up to the changes the Queensland team have made for Origin 2, and I agree, in particular with Travis Norton and PJ Marsh, who will supply exactly what the Maroons need or were lacking in Game 1. Some genuine speed around the rucks with Marsh and some attacking skills before the defensive line with Norton. Now, I've been keeping an eye on the bush and we've got some footage here of Narwan versus Armidale in Group 19. Now, it was a spiteful match, but there were some terrific big hits by Narwan front rower Big Bopper Bob Kelly. Now, he's hammered 1,000 blokes all day out here, and here's a couple of his big hits. He's really got into him, the big fella. Anyway, now on to round 12. I've tipped the Tigers over the Broncos tonight, the Raiders to beat the Eagles, Cowboys to get the win or good win at home against the informed Dragons. I think the Panthers' 2-game winning streak will come to an end, and the Warriors and the Bulldogs will win their games. Good luck for your tips. I'll catch you next week.
Almost 3,000 fans gave Netball Australia plenty to think about as the city continues to push for a side to be based in Newcastle. The Sandpipers certainly looked at home last night, getting off to a great start against the Ravens. With injury hindering much of Nat Avellino's year, the season star looked to be back to her best. It wasn't all about scoring, with Sydney's defence also strong, while the Pipers' mid-court made it look a little too easy at times as skipper Joe Morgan helped open a 24-16 goal lead at the main break. That saw the entry of Newcastle's shooting star in Lara Wellham. She quickly brought the crowd to their feet, while fellow Novocastrian Danielle Harvey did likewise. The Sandpipers 48-35 victors. In the earlier State League local derby, the Hunters enjoyed a slim lead, but as the clock wound down, the goals dried up, with Charlestown enjoying a shooting spree late in the match to win a close one, 42-39. The Australian tug-of-war titles pulls in all kinds. The Murwillumbah team is anchored on a strong Indian influence, while the origins of the Melbourne-based Sinn Féin side was also clear. With the overnight success of their youth team, the Maitland men had a bit more trouble today against their old rivals Macquarie from Dora Creek. Getting a grip on conditions was hard enough today, but getting their hands on Australian titles is what it's all about, and Jumeric from near Tenterfield were hard to stop. Overnight, Ben Steele had troubles before his kickboxing bout against Bazzy Sharif even began. The Newcastle fighter re-injured his knee warming up and was forced to fight under modified rules that reduced the fight to a boxing bout. Although going the distance, it was on two wobbly legs by the end of the 6 rounds for the hometown boy, who was outpointed by the 3-time world champion.
It looks like fun, and to some extent it probably is. But defensive driving courses like this one for Hunter Water employees have a much more serious side by demonstrating speeds, stopping distances and the effects of various loads.
It's a theory session essentially, but supported by practical activities designed to substantiate that theory so that they can be more proactive in preventing emergencies happening.
Bill Hartnett from Industrial Road Safety has been running such courses for 35 years and says companies are increasingly recognising their value.
Well, from an occ health and safety point of view, very important, but also a lot of gains are made in terms of reduced operating costs by having vehicles more readily available on the road because they're not being repaired.
While Hunter Water has full confidence in its employees, it's decided to put those who spend most of their working day behind the wheel through the course, and the drivers acknowledge that it's sometimes easy to be thinking of the job ahead rather than the job at hand.
Brings to light the things that you take for granted when you're driving the vehicle that you should be paying more attention to.
The corporation plans to have more and more of its workforce take the program. Colin Baldwin, NBN News. The first draft of Lake Macquarie's local environment plan resulted in almost 2,000 submissions, among them residents and developers concerned over the impacts of new land zonings. In response, council has suggested a raft of amendments from individual to citywide levels, among them a clarification that single houses can still be rebuilt or upgraded in medium to high density areas, a third industrial zone to better reflect modern industry use, more flexibility in rural areas so some properties don't have 2 to 3 zones, and a clarification of so-called investigation zones to show their future intended use.
About 60% of all submissions have resulted in a change of some form or other to the plan, so I think that's a fair indication that council is listening to what the community is saying.
One group, Fair Go in Planning Lake Macquarie, is already calling for residents to be given more than the planned 28 days to examine the changes.
Well, 90 days gives people a fair and reasonable opportunity to really go through some quite complex information.
Last night's meeting, though, appeased at least some residents, with council again scrapping the idea of extending Warren Road through bushland to provide a link with Cohiba Road. But the final vote on that and the rest of the revised LEP will be made next Tuesday. Both sides were winless going into last night's clash at Adamstown Oval, and it was the locals who found the back of the net first, Chad Bergquist taking the keeper out of the equation for Adam Deering to capitalise. Maitland was under plenty of pressure but responded in the best possible way, Carl Sykes first nailing the equaliser and then making the most of a keeper's mistake to send the Magpies soaring into the lead. But Deering wasn't finished either, across from ex-breaker Adam Sanderson setting up a second. And he had a golden chance for a third after half-time, but couldn't break the 2-all deadlock. Both sides created opportunities, but it was Adamstown who eventually found the winner, Dallas Hill doing the honours, and wasn't he happy. The win saw Adamstown move up 2 places on the ladder, while only 3 teams have played a full 8 games. Hamilton hosts Lake Macquarie later tonight. There were no goals in today's Bill Turner Cup match between Newcastle High and Callaghan College Waratah until late in the second half, the first coming courtesy of Jamie Schumann. Teammate Jonathan Lidgard nailed a penalty shortly after to give Callaghan a 2-0 lead, with pocket rocket Robert Randall picking up a late consolation goal for Newcastle. Callaghan meets Lambton in the next round, who today humbled San Clemente 5-1, Ben Ahern bagging 4 of the home side's goals. Colin Baldwin, NBN News. Steve Simpson seemed to be everywhere for the Blues at ANZ Stadium last night, whether in attack, in defence, or even in one Queenslander's face.
It's good to get a heap of time last night, and yeah, it was a very enjoyable game playing up there at Queensland because they hate us so much.
But whether Simpson will be on the field for the Knights this Saturday remains to be seen. He arrived home this afternoon suffering a knee injury and will wait to see how he feels at tomorrow's training session.
Yeah, hopefully I can play, but I'm not sure at the moment.
The equally instrumental Danny Badiris was also looking battle-scarred, bearing stitches after a close encounter with a boot and also nursing a sore leg. But it looks like nothing will stop Andrew Johns facing the Storm, with the halfback knowing he'll get a vastly different reception at Energy Australia Stadium to the one last night.
Yeah, I look forward to the game against Melbourne. Hopefully it's a big crowd there and just provides that little bit of extra motivation in front of a big crowd at home. So look forward to that.
State of Origin 2 was a traditional Origin encounter. It had some pretty special individual performances from players in both teams. I thought Webke, McKenna, Takiri were Queensland's best, while Simpson and Badiris were outstanding for New South Wales. Andrew Johns' kicking game was 10 out of 10, and he was unlucky his kicks didn't produce more tries. But my favourite performance was from Alfie. He was heavily criticised in Origin 1, but it wasn't until after the game that the general public found out that he was suffering from a virus, and along with his forward pack not doing their job, it made it tough for him to shine. But on Wednesday night, the little fella, only a couple of months away from his 36th birthday, claimed the record for the most State of Origin games, surpassing Mal Meninga with 33, and he was at his best, guiding the Cane Toads to victory. Well, New South Wales could only manage 50% completion rate in the first half, which let them down. But fortunately, Justin Hodges handed the Blues 2 tries with these in-goal passes, which will no doubt go down in Origin folklore. But he'll get a start in Game 3 and hopefully a chance to make amends. Tonight's big game is up there at ANZ again, the Broncos versus the Eels. Parramatta's won 4 of their last 5 games up there at ANZ. I'm going to go with the Eels to win that one. Knights to win a physical clash against the Storm at home. The Sharks, Bulldogs, Warriors, Tigers, Roosters to win their games. Good luck with your tips. I'll see you next week.
It gives new meaning to working for the man. State Roads Minister Carl Scully, Federal Trade Minister Mark Vaile and Port Stephens MP John Bartlett today symbolically breaking the earth to start the Karua bypass, a stage immersed in controversy over where it should go and more recently requiring an additional $10 million overpass to address road safety concerns.
To get into the town of Karua and out again with ease, which wasn't part of the original project.
While the Pacific Highway upgrade has improved road safety, it looms as a state election issue. The 10-year intensive upgrade of the Pacific Highway has reached the halfway point and now the cost is under scrutiny. Shadow Roads Minister and Myall Lakes MP John Turner claims work on just 4 stages were $300 million over budget, a suggestion today savaged by Carl Scully.
That's not true. Most of his figures he just invents, and that's another story he's invented.
The $123 million 10-kilometre section is due to be finished in December 2003 and it includes an engineering challenge to cross the Karua River.
From an engineering perspective, in fact, it's the largest incrementally launched bridge in Australia.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Around 9:10 last night, an Edgeworth man was driving a Mazda 323 sedan north along Main Road, Brunkerville, near Freeman's Waterhole. 200 metres north of Gills Lane, he crossed to the wrong side of the road, colliding with an oncoming semi-trailer, killing him instantly. Police haven't released his name. The driver of the truck, a 33-year-old Stanthorpe man, escaped uninjured, but was suffering from shock. The road was closed for more than 4 hours while police carried out inquiries. As a result of the impact, the prime mover was forced off the road, crashing through a property fence. It eventually came to rest against an embankment just metres from a house. 4 metres to be exact, miraculously taking a path between the house and a power pole. In the light of day, the scene was a sobering reminder of how lucky it was there weren't more casualties. Police say fatigue is the likely cause of the crash and have appealed to motorists to take care this long weekend. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Outside of winning the flag, reaching the Black Diamond AFL representative squad is the high point of the season for most players. Not so good for Cardiff's Ricky Roberts. He was stretchered from the field. Killarney Vale's Dean Amity continued his goal-scoring run. After a week of selection matches just to make the side, some Defence Force players were showing the strain with weary legs and wayward kicking. The Diamonds were eventually home by 82. It's been a long wait, but Adamstown Soccer Club officially opened its new $450,000 grandstand today. A celebrity match highlighted the day and showed off the club's rich history with players like David Lowe, Australian star Graham Jennings and current NSL hero Shane Price all amongst the action. In today's NBN League matches, Cessna got home by 1 against Highfields, while South Cardiff and Western enjoyed comfortable wins. And last night's heats of the Amcar Nationals brought out the best and worst in drivers at Newcastle Speedway. What can only be described as some competitive racing has set up an interesting night of finals at the Tomago circuit.
The F3 was already in demand by late morning as holidaymakers headed home. Police monitoring the freeway with an increase in traffic expected this evening.
That's anticipated to stay at that level as traffic travels home from the snowfields. We don't really expect too much traffic or congestion at Karua.
Thousands of motorists used the Beresfield Driver Reviver to ensure their journey stayed on track, while Highway Patrol officers maintained their presence for Operation Stay Alert. In just 3 days, their random breath tests have nabbed 34 drink drivers from the 4,300 people stopped. However, the greatest concern for police is the number of inexperienced drivers among the 340 caught speeding.
It's been a lot of the younger drivers and provisional drivers doing some really high speeds. And what they don't realise is that their vehicles at that speed become projectiles, and if they're not controlled properly, they can kill and injure themselves.
Police have drawn several positives from this weekend when compared to the Queen's Birthday break last year. The number of accidents involving death or injury are down, and the number of crashes involving drink drivers have been reduced significantly. Gary Blair, NBN News.
The two sides boast the best attack in the league, but the net was hard to find. David Fronze, however, did come close. The ball just not bouncing the right way for the striker, while Evis Heath's header brought the best out of Dean Conway. Despite playing a catch-up game midweek, Olympic still offered plenty before the break. After half-time, however, it was all the Eagles, with Fronze finding Peter Juknowitz, who promptly found the net for his 20th goal already this season. It was almost 21, but the woodwork denied him a second. Mick Williams landed that as Edgeworth took control. At 2-0 down, Olympic were in real trouble, and it just got worse. Fronze burying his team's third as Edgeworth cemented top spot on the ladder. Newcastle enjoyed a good start to the competition, sweeping to victory in its opening preliminary match before finding the home side just too tough. Despite the loss against Illawarra, the Novocastrians still reached today's semi-final but crashed out by 4 goals. To the Speedway, and it was finals time at Tomago last night after a big long weekend of racing, but not everyone featured for the right reasons. On a cold night, the Leader sprint cars were also temperamental. Amcar driver Grant Cassidy had no luck at the meet. That's his rear tyre shredding. While others fell off, defending champion Shane McKinnell became the first to win back-to-back Amcar titles. His namesake may have been the quickest outdoor bowler of his day, but Illawarra's indoor champion Jeff Thompson showed pace isn't everything today. He took out the country men's singles title at Cardiff, while Newcastle players had a great day. June Ruffley winning the ladies singles and her clubmates won 4 more team titles, with Lake Macquarie taking the ladies pairs.
This relatively simple skill can sometimes mean the difference between someone living or dying.
The better we do it, the longer people can survive for.
Cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR, has given thousands of Australians a second chance at life. Bob Williams from Neighbourhood First Aid, himself once saved by CPR, is now giving free classes in the technique in Newcastle for the next 3 weeks. And as these willing students at Maryland Community Centre found out, anyone can learn.
A lot of people think, hey, that's a good idea, but they think it costs an arm and a leg. It's boring, it's very complicated. They're going to fail the exam at the end. They're going to make a fool out of themselves, so they're reluctant to do it.
The classes usually only take 2 hours and are being conducted at various venues around the city.
That's all it is, it's an outright numbers game. The more people who train, the less people die.
Anyone wanting to learn CPR for free can call 4951 2040 or 4954 2420 to make a booking. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Eagle Farm has been a happy hunting ground for the 2-year-old, a Magic Millions winner. The filly won the Sires Produce Stakes last week and backed up yesterday to win the TJ Smith Stakes. That win made it 5 from 8 starts with 2 seconds, taking her earnings past $1.2 million. Not bad for a horse that cost just $36,000. Now to be spelled, Lovely Jubbly will return north early next year to compete for the 3-year-old Magic Millions. Meanwhile, Max Lee's County Tyrone was another to shine north of the border in the Group 1 Queensland Derby on Saturday. The 3-year-old's win proving his quality as a stayer. He'll be spelled ahead of a spring preparation, but already there is talk of possible Caulfield and Melbourne Cup starts.
All there have been has been phone calls, and I have taken 2 of those phone calls, and I need now to put in place some kind of investigative procedure which we have for handling these sorts of complaints.
A weekend splash has slightly changed the hue of the landscape in the Upper Hunter, but it's a deceptive tinge of green. Some parts of the area have missed out on as much as 150 millimetres of annual rainfall so far this year. For New South Wales Agriculture Beef Cattle Officer Bernard Munro, the continuing dry has meant talking with farmers, especially in the Merriward district, about drought management.
Yeah, we're trying to be proactive in this sense, and we as much as producers, feel that being proactive and looking at the situation and making those decisions early is critical.
Winter is the toughest season in the valley, with minimal rain, frosts and westerly winds expected to soon savage the countryside. Farmers are closely monitoring water supplies, and young cattle are a scarce sight, with long-range forecasts of an El Niño suggesting conditions could soon worsen. The Hunter is a region of contrast this winter. While coastal areas need drying conditions after recent rainfall, Upper Hunter farmers urgently want an end to the dry conditions and some substantial rainfall.
The rainfall is important from a stock water point of view. Really in terms of a feed base, generally people can't expect much increase in their feed base at this point in time coming into winter.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
This is just one of the roadblocks set up by state forests, prohibiting all entry to an 800-hectare parcel of land in the Chichester State Forest. Inside are a group of protesters, their demonstration effectively preventing pre-logging road construction from continuing.
As far as we know at the moment, we've got 7 players still involved, but the forests have been closed, so there's no way we can get in there to basically assess how they're going.
Members of the Black Bulga Range Action Group are outraged that they have been shut out, and such a large area surrounding the proposed logging site closed to the public.
It's such a drastic and apparently undemocratic thing to do, and we have large state forest edifice really behaving disproportionately heavily.
Even NBN's attempts to gain access were denied. The action group claim logging will have a disastrous impact on a wildlife corridor linking 2 protected areas.
It's really a very rich area, well worthy of protection.
State forests say the closure is directly related to the protest and will remain so until the demonstrators are forcibly removed or go of their own accord. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
With an escort in the sky, John McLean rolled into town. A figure of grim determination, John has embarked on a 30-day quest to ride 2,002 kilometres from Brisbane to Melbourne. The Kilometres for Kids ride aims to raise $1 million to provide children with wheelchairs.
An average cost of a wheelchair is about $2,500 for a child, so that's very expensive for the parents, and a lot of these parents can't afford to pay for it. So my joy is to try and raise a lot of money and to put little bums on little seats and make little kids happy.
Today's leg finished outside the town hall, where an ambulance officer tended to cut suffered in a mishap in loose gravel near Bulahdelah. The chief there to welcome the 34-year-old athlete, who then met the mayor. A former world triathlon champion and reserve grade player for the Penrith Panthers Rugby League club, John became a paraplegic at age 22 after being hit by a truck during training. But through incredible perseverance, he became the first and only wheelchair athlete to swim the English Channel and compete in the Hawaiian Ironman triathlon. He says his drive was reignited while in a hospital room after his accident.
The other three guys in the room were quadriplegics, which means they'd broken their necks at a high level and they couldn't move anything. So it was an instant wake-up call. Never ever feel sorry for yourself, because there's people who are worse off, and get into life.
The trek finishes in Melbourne in 16 days. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Training is in full swing for the National Championships in Melbourne next month, and the 5 local players who'll join the state country team are focused on success. Their mentor is none other than former Newcastle Falcons assistant coach Leon Burwell.
Well, it's really an apex for them, because it's their only chance to represent at a national level, and from this national level there will be a team picked to become a national team which will play overseas.
At age 30, Joe Walker from Anna Bay is not only the veteran of the team, but also a veteran of 5 national titles.
It's a great feeling and it's a great honour to play on the team.
The local reps are Daniel Adnam, Brad Beer, Lee Towers, Joseph Walker and Michael Matheson. And Coach Leon says his role is rewarding.
It's great fun. In fact, they become more than just players to me. I think they're equal to any friends that I have, so pretty satisfying situation.
Whether it was the strong wind or just a bad kick, Wests got off to a shaky start against Raymond Terrace, but they soon found their feet with captain coach Troy Fletcher leading by example. With the junior cheer squad in action, the Rosellas were soon across again, with some good passing finding Trent Watson, who carried it across with ease. But the Terrace fought back, running away with the match. Full-time score, the Terrace 18, West 16. Meantime, the best young rugby players from throughout country New South Wales were at Merewether's Townsend Oval today for the Daniel Harrower Cup. In this match, Merewether Carlton's under-15s were beaten 19-17 by the under-14 Countryside.
While Luke Quigley took a trip to the physio this morning for treatment on a tight hamstring, rest assured nothing will stand in the way of him making his first grade debut off the bench this Sunday.
Play with blokes like Billy Peden, sort of blokes I've looked up to for a long time. And on Sunday, we run around alongside him, and I can't wait.
Hailing from Warren near Dubbo, the 20-year-old came to the Knights 4 years ago and only started playing First Division this year. This weekend marks a meteoric rise by anyone's standards, and it's something he credits to a fellow Newcastle hooker in more ways than one.
He's helped me out a lot. To have such a great player above me and a good bloke makes things a lot easier, I think.
Adam Woolnow is another young Knight down to fill the Origin Stars void this Sunday in what will kick off a busy week. The 20-year-old front rower goes into camp straight afterwards with the New South Wales residents team that'll play its Queensland counterpart in a curtain raiser to Wednesday's Origin decider.
Well, it's only my fourth first grade game, so hopefully come through the game unscathed and be able to take me part in the New South Wales residents side.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
The simple art of building and racing a billy cart has been enjoyed by Australian families for as long as anyone can remember. But now organised events like this one at Nelson Bay are under threat because insurance companies won't take the risk to cover them in case someone has a spill.
To me, the insurance companies are holding Australia to ransom with the way they're carrying on. It's stopping all the kids from having fun.
This group had planned a derby for next month at Toronto on the shore of Lake Macquarie, only to be told last week that no one would insure them.
I've been involved with a lot of motor racing things for years and never had any problems with insurance, but the climate at this point of time is, if the word risk is involved, they just don't want to know you.
There's so many families building billy carts, especially for the occasion, and I really feel for them. My heart goes out to them.
Similar events at Gresford and Raymond Terrace have already been canned, with next year's Murrurundi Derby looking shaky.
For the kids in the town, they've been building these things for the last 6 or 8 months, and I think it would have been a really big thing for the town to have this type of event.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It was business as usual at the Rainbow Sands mine on the morning of October 2 last year. However, as Newcastle District Court today heard, the redhead operation also proved attractive to 4 Windale boys who wanted to snowboard in piles of clean sand during their school holiday. The insight came when 2 members of the group, aged 12 and 14, gave evidence at the trial of Wayne Kelvin Lavender. The 44-year-old from Whitebridge has pleaded not guilty to manslaughter and dangerous driving causing the death of 13-year-old Michael Milne at the mine last October. Making their appearance by closed-circuit television, the boys, who can't be named, told of their decision to flee into bushland after they noticed a person leave a site office and a front-end loader then head toward them. The youngest boy told the court how Michael Milne and he stayed together and tried to evade the machine. He said Michael took cover under a tree and called for the youth to join him. The boy refused and kept running. Moments later, he heard Michael scream. Prosecutor Laurie Gray and Defence Counsel Sean Egan for Lavender both questioned the boys on whether they had been warned about the dangers of the site or told not to go there. The boys replied no. The trial continues tomorrow. Gary Blair, NBN News.
If only the pool of money the Knights had to keep players was bigger, then John Morris wouldn't be floating away to another. Already allowed to negotiate with other clubs, Morris is set to become hot property on the open market after performances like yesterday's against the Tigers. His 2 tries were the under-strength Knights' only joy.
I took a bit of responsibility on myself yesterday with Joey and Danny being out, that I thought, I did have to come up with a big game, not only just for my own individual needs, but just for the team.
Already courted by Canberra, the Roosters and Parramatta are known to be keen also, but wherever Morris goes, he'll be leaving the utility role in Newcastle.
I'll be going as a starting player, whether I'll be looking at hooker or probably 5'8". I think I've served my apprenticeship here and it's been wonderful, but for my career I'd like to go on and start somewhere.
Tough news today for young forward Adam Woolnough, who tore a hamstring during the 16-point loss. The injury sinks his chances of representing for the state residents team that is playing the curtain raiser to Wednesday night's State of Origin decider. Matt Parsons, meanwhile, continues his recovery from a shoulder injury and is looking a good chance to play against his old club, South Sydney, this weekend. Jim Callanan, NBN News. With one of the current 8 teams to go, New South Wales doesn't want it to be either of its 2 clubs. Like other states, New South Wales has 3 weeks to put together its case and will meet tomorrow night to outline their submission. It's likely they will continue to push for the Sandpipers to be relocated to Newcastle, but ultimately Netball Australia will have the final say on August 23. In Premier League hockey, an all-important win for the entrants who beat University, even though Jamie Bucket's radar was off target early. He soon found range and the goal, with this finish taking the Central Coast side up 2-0. The students fought hard with good lead-up work finished off by Nathan Colthorpe as Uni halved the lead. But the entrants had their measure, a short corner variation converted by David Fibbins to help his side score a 2-goal win and stay in equal second. In other games, West, Phoenix North and South all enjoyed good wins. Toulon Bowles and Sam Lagutsa has won his 3rd district singles title and made it 2 in a row after beating Beresfield's Ian Lean 31 shots to 27 at Toronto on the weekend. Lean, who won the title in 1998, kept pace for most of the match before Lagutsa skipped away for a 4-shot win.
In his last official ceremony as Hunter Regional Commander, Terry Collins handed out the various police awards. For 3 officers from the Manning Great Lakes Command, regional citations were given out for their work in apprehending a wanted man who turned on them with a knife. For Senior Constables Adrian Aldous and Craig Ryan and Constable Vicky Bramford, that night in Foster in early February was just another on the job.
Your adrenaline's going because we did a foot pursuit after him for about 150 metres beforehand, so when he pulled the knife out it was just reaction and protection of yourself and himself, and just did the job that we had to do.
Other recipients included Senior Constable Richard Baxter and Volunteer in Policing Ron Wills, who received their citations for the work they did in trying to save the life of an 18-year-old gunshot victim, Daniel Ryan, and then for helping his grieving family when he died. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.